Okay, I'd like to call the Budget Review Committee to order. It's May 31st, 2023. We're in the Aldermanic Chamber and it's 7 p.m. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman John Sullivan is absent. Alderman Ernest Jettie.
Here.
Alderman June Karen.
Here.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly is absent. Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
Here.
Alderman at Large Michael B. O'Brien Sr. is present. And our chairman, Richard A. Dowd.
Present.
Present. Also in attendance for Alderman is Alderman Derek Theobald. Also in attendance and appearing, not necessarily in order listed, will be Steve Buxton, Fire Chief, National Fire Rescue. William Atkinson, Assistant Fire Chief, National Fire Rescue. Kevin Burgess, Fire Commissioner Chairman. Mary Ann Alicia Gozier of the Fire Commission. And Karen Conde, Executive Administrative Assistant.
Okay, first order of business is public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment on what's before us this evening on the agenda? Seeing none. Communications?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
None.
New business resolutions?
There are none.
New business ordinances?
There is none.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, we have tabled in committee. I would like to make a motion to remove from the table R-23-125, which is the fiscal year budget.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to remove R-23-125 from the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the fire department's budget. It's Department 152, and the revenue is on 107, appropriations on 108. Chief, whoever you want to bring up, you can occupy as many seats as you want. Except for the second one, that's John, he's gonna be here, Sullivan, he's running late, so.
Which one, this one?
The second one.
So go to
Move down one, Karen.
Go down.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, Chief, if you want to give an overview of the budget, and then as we go through the line items, the ones that had any significant changes from last year's budget, or anything you want to talk to, you can have yourself or any of your team talk to.
Certainly. Steve Buxton, National Fire Chief. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us this evening. I'd like to take a moment to thank the admin team at NFR for their efforts in building this budget. Assistant Chief Atkinson, Executive Assistant Karen Conde, and Administrative Assistant Anne-Marie Boucher are highly skilled and organized, and their efforts are very much appreciated. National Fire Rescue aims to be the premier emergency services provider in our region that is constantly striving for excellence in service delivery through education, innovation, and collaboration. National Fire protects $14 billion in real and personal property. Our fire alarm division monitors just under $2 billion in assets, which continues to grow as our city develops. In FY24, NFR is projected to bring a total revenue of $467,000. And partial thanks to Alderman Jettie. As you are aware, last year we updated our permit fee structure. This, coupled with the additional inspector investigator position, which we received full funding for last year, assisted in collecting some of these additional revenues. A key aspect of National Fire Rescue's approach is our focus on adequate staffing. This allows us to respond quickly to incidents and prevent them from escalating into larger, more dangerous situations. The level of preparedness is essential in emergency services, and this is something that National Fire Rescue takes very seriously. Many other communities are overwhelmed when their available resources are overwhelmed, and they result in longer incidents as well as the loss of property, which eventually translates into tax revenue. As you are aware, in 2021, we published a master plan study for the organization. From this, there was 40-plus recommendations that were brought forward. Of course, most of these, if not all, have a price tag attached to them. As a result, we developed a strategic plan to prioritize these recommendations so they are accomplished efficiently. The goal is to develop and nurture a modern fire department that meets the needs of our community and is financially viable. As we accomplish these objectives, we will not only be meeting the needs of our community, but we will be continually working towards our goal of achieving an ISO 1 rating for our organization in the community. Both the master plan and the strategic plan can be located on our website. I can report to you that we continue to make progress on these recommendations with the assistance of our members and the investment from the city. These efforts are also supplemented through the use of grant funding opportunities. In FY23, we utilized $325,000 in grant funding. Unfortunately, we also had to decline $750,000 in grant funding through the Assistance to Firefighters grant program. This was a grant for firefighter health and wellness, and the reason we were not able to take advantage of this grant is we did not have the bandwidth at the administrative level within our organization to facilitate it appropriately. Our goal in FY24 is to continue addressing the master plan recommendations to assist in moving the organization forward. Like many others, NFR continues to suffer from recruitment and retention issues. We have engaged a new process with the assets currently available to us and are realizing some success. Due to our efforts, we have hired members from within the region as well as nationwide. We continue to work to clearly identify a pathway for citizens of Nashua to pursue a career with NFR. This is an issue that has many contributing factors to it, and it will involve efforts on both the local and state level to solve. In addition, we work with IAFF Local 789 to identify areas the membership values and improve our organization and collective bargaining agreement so it is attractive to those pursuing a career in the fire service. NFR will continue to work to acquire new equipment and apparatus as defined in the SURF schedule. As you are aware, we currently have 2 fire engines and an aerial apparatus on order. The build time for these apparatus are now 28 to 32 months, and we greatly appreciate your efforts in assisting us in maintaining this schedule, which will eventually result in a savings to taxpayers. We will continue to work to secure capital improvements fundings to invest in our infrastructure, as well as funding to increase staffing within the organization as mapped out in the master plan and according to the needs of our community. The following projects are underway within our organization, and some of this funding was achieved through ARPA funding. We're in the process of moving a project forward that will update the fire station alerting system. Completing this project will improve the health and safety of our members, and we expect to see improved response times while giving us the ability to extract data at a level that has never before been available to us to evaluate our compliance with NFPA 1710. We are in the process of executing a significant fire alarm cabling project that will reinforce our infrastructure and allow for more growth in the north and southwest quadrants of the city as it continues to develop. We are currently working with our city partners towards upgrading the city's aging traffic preemption system. Completion of this project will result in a complete update to all 98 signaled intersections within our city. In addition, the model selected is scalable and could also provide benefits to DPW as well as the Transit Department. Our FY24 staffing requests include the following: the addition of an assistant fire chief's position. This position would be responsible for professional standards within our organization, oversight of recruitment for our new members, oversight of the training and credentialing programs of the organization, management of the promotional process, implementation and management of professional development programs within NFR. This position was requested for a half-year funding. It has been adjusted to a quarter-year funding, and I would request that you restore the requested amount to $69,624.50. That would be an addition of $34,812.23. Next is an addition of a part-time IT position. Many aspects of our profession have become more reliant on technology for both emergency responses, routine operations, and new construction within our community. Some examples within our organization are computer-aided dispatch, fire station alerting, traffic preemption, bidirectional amplifier, radio system component inspection, and installation oversight. This part-time position will oversee those technologies as well as create a formal IT management program for NFR. Currently, there is no position with NFR to handle this workload. While city IT department does well to handle the normal IT needs, such as our desktops, our payroll software, and scheduling, the specialized needs required to do our work are quickly outgrowing their bandwidth. City IT currently does not keep up with our needs to supply MDTs for our apparatus or other devices required for work in the field. As a result, many of these devices, along with the fees associated with them, have been transferred to our budget. Please note that this position has been requested in collaboration with the Radio Communications Division. The position is currently only funded at a 50% rate of what was requested, and I would request that you restore the funding to that radio communications budget to allow us to fill the position with the appropriate candidate. This would require the addition of $32,000 into the radio communications budget. In capital improvements, we have received funding for $50,000 worth of deferred maintenance. Request number one, we requested a funding for a building conditions assessment study for all 7 of our facilities. It's important to invest in such studies as they help prevent unanticipated maintenance costs and ensure that our facilities are safe, functioning properly, and maximize the longevity of them within our city. This request was for $210,000 and is currently not funded within the budget. This is to evaluate just under $15 million in city assets that range in age from 130 years old to 17 years old. This funding would assist us in developing a comprehensive plan for our facilities that would carry us into the future. Request number two is for a floor repair at 15 Amherst Street. Since 2001, we have been maintaining and repairing several small cracks in the concrete floor of the Amherst Street Fire Station. In the fall of 2022, we located some more significant cracks that were located remote from the others. These were evaluated by a structural engineering firm, and the recommendation that was returned is for a major overhaul of the concrete floor from both the top and bottom sides to make the appropriate repairs that are needed. The engineering report recommends that we have the floor evaluated and inspected every 6 months until the repairs are made. The cost of the evaluation is $6,500, and the total cost, estimated cost of repair is $556,000. Other FY24 increases that are contained in our budget: our collective bargaining agreement obligations, utility increases that were dictated to us by administrative services, purchasing, and the energy manager, a request for additional dollars in the shift coverage and overtime line. This was a significant request, and this is a very hard number for us to predict. 90% of the NFR workforce is required to be replaced when they take time off to maintain the appropriate staffing levels within the organization. These staffing levels are a requirement of the CBA. They currently meet NFPA standard 1710 and has been proven through research and testing to be the most efficient staffing level for a city fire department protecting a community such as Nashua. As I have stated earlier, a key aspect to Nashua Fire Rescue's approach is our focus on adequate staffing. This allows us to respond quickly to incidents, prevent them from escalating to larger and more dangerous situations. This level of preparedness is essential in emergency services. This is something that we take very seriously. In closing, I want to take a moment to thank the mayor and the Board of Aldermen for their continued support. As you are aware, National Fire Rescue has struggled to recover from cuts that were made to our organization several years ago. Through the efforts of the mayor and others, we are slowly making progress to regain some of this ground, while at the same time being certain the funding is placed appropriately for the needs of our community. I would further like to thank the Board of Fire Commission, and most importantly, the members of National Fire Rescue for their efforts each and every day to make our community safer and assist those within our community who are having their worst day imaginable. I think it takes a special individual to enter into a career of public service, and I would say that firefighters are some of the most unique of these public servants. This is not just because of their skill set, but because of their compassion and desire to fix any issue that is presented to them. I'd like to thank you for your time. I'd be more than willing to answer any questions you may have for me.
Okay, when anyone else speaks, please remember to bring your microphones closer to you and state your name for the record, so the transcriptionists will know who's speaking.
And to repeat it as well, every time that they.
Yeah,
say
every
it.
time you talk again, repeat it, because they won't know the voice. Okay.
Questions? You take
Question, yeah.
questions? Yeah, I do have one, Chief. I'm very concerned. As you know, I'm Chairman of Infrastructure. I've seen over the years, the lack of maintenance on some of the buildings that the city does own. And I wasn't aware. I have, as you know, a history with NFR. I remember when the floor collapsed the first time. And I was working at the Arlington Street Station when that floor collapsed. And can you just enlighten the board a little bit more that we got a transient load of 16 to 22 tons moving out of that, and that's putting a lot of stress on that concrete. Basically, if I were to build a new station, such as the new Crown Hill Station, they're no longer building it over a pit, such as a basement. So if you
Steve Buxton, National Fire. As we know, the Amherst Street Station is our oldest firehouse. It's one of the oldest firehouses that is still in service in the New England region. The load that is currently on that, an engine goes about 20 ton, and an aerial device goes between 36 and 40 ton. So the load that is being placed on that floor is much more significant even since the days when he left. They're certainly not making the trucks any smaller. We do monitor it frequently. We have done much repair through capital improvements in the past, mostly to the top side of the slab. This one most recent crack that developed, well, they've told us at this point in time, it's safe and we just have to monitor it. We do need to pay it the attention it's due before it continues to deteriorate.
Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a question, and this may be more for Chairman Dowd. So the building study and the floor repair was taken out of the budget. Is that something because they're more one-time fees that we could pay through escrow if we have escrow? Now, I don't know what the escrow is gonna be yet, but isn't that something we could put in there as opposed to staffing, which you really shouldn't be putting in escrow?
Well, why it was taken out, we'd have to ask the mayor, but as far as where it could be funded, yes, those are other options that it could be funded through escrow or other.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't
bonding
support it in the budget. I'm just thinking that if we don't end up passing it through in the budget, that we find, this other way, because obviously both of these things I think are extremely important. Obviously the building study and obviously the floor repair is something that we would have to do sooner than later, I think, so.
Yeah, there are several ways to approach it, but we'd have to look into which way to go. There are other stations that require work as well for getting there. Fire station at the airport is in pretty tough shape. Fortunately, we have some of the newer fire stations, but the Amherst Street Fire Station, I think, goes all the way back to the horses, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
That was not when O'Brien was.
No, I remember him. Ash and cinder.
in. Oh, jeez. ash and cinder. Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Sullivan.
Please, and my apologies, Chief Buxton, and to your entire team for being a few minutes late tonight. You mentioned staffing, and in our budget books, I'm looking at a number of, Nashua Fire and Rescue has 181 and a quarter people. What I didn't see, and that you outlined in your comments, and again, I was late, so I might have missed some of the narrative around it. I don't see in that 181, the IT position that you mentioned. Is that a wish that you want there, or?
Go ahead, Chief.
Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. So that position is actually in collaboration with the Radio Communications Division.
Okay,
So it'll be funded through their budget, and they'll actually work with those individuals supporting fire IT needs.
okay.
Yeah, that was asked for by Mr. Mansfield, and we had discussed it when he was in.
Okay,
Yes, Alderman Sullivan.
thank you. Are you 181 and a quarter people, fully staffed currently?
I guess I would ask what you mean by fully staffed.
Are you at 181 and a quarter people?
Not currently, no.
Okay. Where are you in the?
I think we're 176 currently. We just had 12 recruits hit the floor the beginning of May, and we already have 5 openings within our organization. We're probably due to have 7 openings by the beginning of fall.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I think you would also explain it's difficult hiring people right now because there aren't people out there looking to become policemen or firemen. Just the way it is. Any other questions? Alderman Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for explaining what was left out of your budget. And I, like Alderman O'Brien, know that we just do not take care of our buildings. And my thoughts are, what a terrible thing to happen if that caved in over there on Amherst Street. So I think that having discussions within the budget committee later on, how do we help you get that so that your people are safe and the people around you, and if anything happened to that building, it would be catastrophic. So, but I do appreciate that you gave us an overview of what was taken out of the budget. I appreciated that very much. Thank you.
Very welcome.
So if we lost the floor of that station, we not only risk people being injured, but those 3 trucks combined cost millions, and they obviously wouldn't do well going through the floor. So it's something that we probably should come up with an approach, maybe not part of the budget, but other ways of funding.
Chairman.
Yes.
I couldn't agree with you more, but more importantly, human life. There's people that occupy that building. You wouldn't tolerate it in your house to have something that could catastrophically collapse, or potentially. So let's remember that there's a 24/7 is a crew living in that structure, so it's a need within itself.
That's why we get the trucks out of Lake Street Fire, the old Lake Street Fire Station. Alderman Jettie, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So on that subject, since the Amherst Street Station is so old, in your planning, I know you have a plan, and I looked at it a long time ago. I don't remember all the details, but is that Amherst Street Station going to stay? I mean, if we replace the floor, is it? I hate to replace the floor and then build a new building somewhere else to service that area. So can you talk about that?
Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. So yes, we do have plans to maintain that location from now and for many, many years. We may take some strides to lessen the load on that floor because there is a full basement under there. But either way, we would need the floor repaired. As Alderman Dowd stated, the airport fire station is in desperate need of repair. One of our requests in the 6-year plan under capital improvements was for some money to start studying where that should be located and start some architectural drawings and so forth to design a station out in that area. So our thoughts are, we would maybe be able to move the aerial device out towards that district, have a two-piece company type fire station out in the area of the airport, and lessen the load on the floor at 15 Amherst Street.
Okay. May I
Yes,
continue?
continue, Alderman Jettie.
So, Chief, you itemized several requests, and I was trying to follow in the book, I don't know if those, you seem to be paralleling what you've listed as goals here, but there are, I don't see any numbers. You mentioned several numbers. Is it, am I missing it? Is it here? Or if not, can you provide us with a list of your requests and the numbers that you would like us to add to the budget?
From within the capital improvements program,
What, you mentioned, you mentioned adding an assistant fire chief, part-time IT position. You talked about the floor at Amherst Street, and I think, you know, you also talked about building condition assessment study. I thought that you were asking us to add that to the budget. If so, could you provide us, you know, with those specific requests and the numbers that go with them so that we could consider that?
certainly. So the assistant chief's position, the
Alderman Jettie, do you mean in writing so that the whole board has it?
Yeah, that would be,
oh, absolutely,
rather than my trying to
certainly.
take dictation from you.
We don't want to transcribe it wrong and get the wrong.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
So if you would send the answer to Donna Graham, she will get it to all the aldermen, not just the
Perfect.
budget committee.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Alderman Jettie, and
Yeah, thank you. So I noticed in salaries and wages, the difference between what you've listed as what the department proposed and what the mayor is proposing, I calculate the difference of $535,957. And I think I found that under the overtime shift coverage. Is that correct? Is that where that number is?
Karen Condi, Nashua Fire. The majority of it is there in the overtime shift line. 446,957 was from the overtime line. 89,000 is from the wages full time, which is the 6 months for the captain of EMS and 3 months of the assistant chief.
Okay.
For the overtime line, it's always been underfunded. It's hard to predict what the overtime is gonna be, but as of this year, right now, projecting out, we'll be at about $3.8 million on that line. So if we're at 2.9 next year, we're already looking at a problem.
Okay. And so maybe you could include that in your list of acts. And I noticed the total revenue for year-to-date total revenue is over 748,000, but your proposed budget is 467 plus thousand. Where's the difference there? Why is that?
I believe the city received some funding from the New Hampshire retirement system or from the state of New Hampshire in regards to pension last year. That is the difference between the two numbers.
And you're not expecting that again, or is that a one-time thing?
we'll see how Mr. O'Brien can do.
I tried.
Not at this point in time, no.
So that that contribution refund, what did that, what is that, what's the explanation for that? Why did we get a refund? Do you know?
So,
I believe that came to the city, and that number is the fire department's portion. So we received some, the police department received some, anybody contributing to the state retirement system received that refund.
do you remember how
So,
much, Alderman
is that-
O'Brien?
Is that part of the 2 million that
Right.
Alderman O'Brien got?
Yeah, but understand it's a butter that is very thin on the bread, because it's not just police and fire, and traditionally people say that when NHRS, they say police and fire. But there's people that are employees of City Hall that belong to the NHRS, the teachers, and there's a whole bunch and stuff like that. So there's only other one pension system in the city, and that's Public Works, and that has a very limited number. The rest are on New Hampshire retirement system. So it did do well by the city. Was it everything we wanted? Of course not. And it was a one-time deal. Until people up there, I'll make no joke about it, until people up there really smarten up. It's nice when you look out at the lake and everything else like that, but what about the reality of the second largest city in New Hampshire? Those people need to buckle up and realize the problems municipalities like Manchester and Nashua has.
Any other questions? Are you all set, Alderman Jen?
I have another question.
Sure.
Under your goals, the second to the last item is adjust the AMR contract to include BLS units. What are BLS? What does that mean?
Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. So currently our contract with AMR requires them to provide us with 4 ALS units. An advanced life support unit is a unit that is staffed with a paramedic as well as an advanced EMT. We have found that probably better than 60% of our incidents that we respond to in the city do not require advanced life support skills set. They require basic life support skill set, and therefore we would like to adjust the contract at some point in time, potentially to maybe include even more ambulances, but at a basic life support level.
Okay, so the BLS is basic life support.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Just one, if I may.
Certainly. Alderman O'Brien.
On the potential of the, new assistant chief, what is the start date that they gave you, and what would you like to see? I've been waiting for Alderman Karen to ask the question. Are you fully funded and are you ready to go? But do you mind if
Be my guest, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman. But what would be for the best for your department to be the target date to start this particular position?
Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. Our target date would be January 1. That would give us a half-year funding. It's not as significant of an impact on the budget all at once. It kind of steps it up, and then the following year, you try to get the full year funding for it. It gives us a chance between July and January to actually put a process together to decide who we want for the position, get the roles and responsibilities formalized and laid out. So it gives us a little planning time.
Okay, and right now, what is the start date? Is there a potential start date?
No, not yet, because it was cut to a quarter year, so a quarter year would be closer to, April timeframe.
So January 1st, okay.
All set?
All set?
So, Alderman Jennings?
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So, perhaps you could help me understand this. So like the Amherst Street Station, that's a capital improvement, is it not?
Mhm.
And I didn't think that capital improvements were put into your regular budget. Isn't that a separate item? Don't we fund those things differently?
There's a section in the budget book for capital improvement projects, and they get a list from the Capital Improvements Committee, and the mayor picks the ones that he wants to fund in the budget. So, and I don't believe the fire station's in there. Good, well, Chief.
So the capital improvements program starts on page 224, I believe, in the budget book. And I'm a big fan of the new layout of the budget book. I really like it. One thing that I didn't really care for is we don't have a full report on everybody's capital improvements requests. So therefore, you can't see my request that,
It's a separate document, unfortunately.
you can't see everything that we requested for future years, because there is a 6-year plan that has been put together. Does that answer your question?
So,
Probably, whether I understand it or not is the issue.
so Director Sullivan and I are sitting down, they didn't want to do it before the budget this year, because he wants to change that whole process, so that when you, I don't want to get into it because it's complicated, but we're probably going to change that process so it's easier for the mayor to select what goes into the budget. As far as the fire stations, when we finish up with Maine, Dunstable, and Birch Hill, we're done with schools for a while. And I think I've talked to you, Chief, about it, looking at, that's why they want to do the assessment study for the fire stations, so we can figure out, okay, where are we today? What has to be fixed before we start building a new station? Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way.
No?
And there's the study they did said we need another one perhaps in the Amber Street, Thornton Road area. And that's, trying to work that out with the, what do we do with the airport fire station? Because it's a problem with the airport being there covering Ward 1 and Amber Street with one station. It's just, if you get hung up on Sharon Avenue, it's a problem.
Quarter of the city.
Yeah, so, I mean, so the assessment study will give you an idea of where all the fire stations currently exist and what that needs to be done to them, Amber Street being the most obvious. And then a plan for, and it's probably gonna be a bond. And what can be included in it, I'm not sure, I have to talk with the treasurer. But I think that we could look at, maybe looking at if we get the assessment study done, we could probably start looking at repairs to the fire station in 25. And we'd look at the whole situation of what needs to be done. There was some discussion about putting one up off Amber Street, perhaps a station like they have in Hudson across from the bridge. I think that's pretty much wood, it's not brick. And moving the heavy truck out of Amber Street up to that station. But I mean, this is just preliminary. I mean, there's a lot of study that needs to be done beforehand, so. But I think that we'd be in a position bonding-wise when we're done with schools for the foreseeable future, that now we focus on the fire department.
So-
Alderman Jettie?
So am I correct in understanding that the cost of the study would be in this budget, but
It could be, it could also be in escrow funds. I'll have that discussion with, I don't know if you've talked to him, the treasurer. There's some things the mayor wants to put in the escrow funds, so some of that's deferred maintenance, other things. I don't know what's in there yet, because I don't think they've got that far along.
but the cost of repairing the floor at Amherst Street would not be in this budget, it would be on some future.
No, I think that ought to be combined with other work that needs to be done, you know, and bond it and get the work done that needs to be done. I think the first step, again, is doing the assessment of the building, so we know, you know, we'd hate to start on 2 stations and all of a sudden find there's a problem with a third. We should be in pretty good shape with most of the others, but the assessment tells you, you know, what's lacking and what the condition is and all of that. Something, we did a similar one with the schools, by the way, and I think we're almost ready to do another one. because it's hard to keep track in the schools department of 18 buildings. Fortunately, they don't have as many buildings, so. But you have to do that assessment because it's not something that's known day to day. It's something, you have to hire somebody to go around and look and see what they're looking for structurally.
Thank you.
If I-
Deputy? Assistant Chief, rather.
Bill Atkinson, Nashua Fire. Just to add a little context to the Amherst Street Fire Station, most of you probably have a garage at your home. The concrete thickness under your car, that garage slab floor is 4 inches thick. The slab floor at Amherst Street is only 8 inches thick. And we're as the chief alluded to, we're putting well over 80,000 pounds for a ladder truck in there. That's a problem. With respect to the facility study, currently I have in excess of $60,000 in HVAC repairs that we're looking at presently, and that's only for mechanical systems that have been identified by our subcontractors. And in addition to that, we have 5 of our 7 buildings are over 40 years old. So doing a facility study, the city's done it to both of the parking garages as well as the city library. It just helps us with a roadmap to be most fiscally frugal with the monies that are available to us. We can easily identify what our HVAC repair costs are because of our subcontractors. But with respect to structural movement, for example, with Amherst Street being right on the edge of the road and the vibration of trucks going by and the fact that it has a granite foundation, there is movement to that building. That's the reason that we need to have an engineering firm come in here and look at it and see how much more life. When you build a fire station, you anticipate, or you build it for at least a 50-year life expectancy. Obviously, with that Amherst Street being built in 1894, we're well beyond that. But by having a facility study, it helps us to look at the whole building envelope, including the condition of the roof with an anticipated projection of how long that roof is gonna last. A residential house, we all know we get about 25 years out of a roof. So having that information on our assets is only significant value to the city, but it helps us as we develop a roadmap going forward to be more fiscally frugal.
It's similar, we did that analysis pre-COVID with the police department, and they had issues. Their HVAC system was antique, and it's now been replaced. And they had a problem with their windows. They had duct tape on the side of the windows to keep the snow from coming in. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous. So we fixed the police station now, so they're up to speed, and they really appreciate it. So now we got to look at the fire department's buildings. Oh.
Me again.
Oh, me.
Not to continue to beat the dead horse, but if we talk about the potential of a new assistant chief, which would probably be C3, correct? But in the position of C3, this is, can you discuss, Chief, with the board? This isn't really a new concept. Actually, it did exist before, but with budget cuts that were relayed back to the department and the strangulation at that particular time fiscal strangulation to the fire department. It's high time to get that position back. Can you just opine to that, if you don't mind?
Yep, Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire. So in 2001, we created that position. It was in service for approximately 3 to maybe 4.5 years. In about 2002, 2008, some budget cuts were requested from all city departments. The fire department, I believe, lost about 12 positions in those cuts, and we have been struggling to get those back up on the board ever since. To this point in time, I believe out of the 12, we probably have about 5 of them back in service. Some of them we won't utilize. We've gone in a different direction, but the assistant chief is one that we significantly struggle with, and the organization is kind of hamstrung. As you heard me say, we had to decline a $750,000 grant for the organization that we wrote for. A lot of members put a lot of hard work and effort into it, but at the end of the day, we couldn't do our due diligence to administratively execute the grant program appropriately because we don't have the bandwidth for it. Our promotional processes, our hiring practices, I don't want to bore you with the details, but a lot of work gets pushed down to other areas of the organization. And, myself, the assistant chief, the deputy chiefs, work a lot of hours and are unable to utilize some of our leave time because we don't have that additional set of hands to handle some of the workload, so.
Yeah, just a follow-up to it.
Alderman O'Brien?
So this would help you out. I mean, the thing is, just so the board's appreciation and the public, gone are the days of just putting out fires and feeding the horses. I mean, my time, I was in charge of the dive team. So can you just tell us about the different divisions and how this new position will help you out with the, we have grown in divisions here that really need some oversight, training, oversight. My greatest fear when I ran the dive team was to make sure everybody was satisfied. Because when you're about 25 feet underwater, I can't save you quick enough. So the thing is, their training was phenomenal, which was good. So can you say what everybody's going to be doing and how many things, your circus, so to speak, how many balls you got in the air?
Certainly. So a new concept we would have within our organization with this position would be professional standards. In the law enforcement community, that's something that's existed for 20 plus years. And we started down that road in the early 2000s, and then we had to put it on hold. Professional standards allows us to develop our firefighters, it allows us to develop our company officers, allows us to develop our inspectors, investigators at every level of our organization. Recruitment and retention within our organization, currently one of the deputy chiefs or a couple of deputy chiefs out there have a hand in that. The deputy chiefs, their job is actually to manage the city when they're on duty and run emergency incidents, scheduling, injury reports, anything that can happen within the city in their 24-hour block of time, they're responsible for. Unfortunately, because of that cut, we have them doing that, plus recruitment, retention, apparatus specifications, protective clothing development, training bulletins, training programs. They work hand in hand either with the fire marshal's office, helping with tech review, with the training division, doing recruit school, and all of the training credentialing that needs to take place, or assisting in managing the promotional process. All at the same time, they're trying to run the city. So as Alderman O'Brien points to the Circus Act, how many balls we have in the air at the same time, we've reached a point that it's very challenging for us to keep the organization up to speed with the growth that is taking place in the city.
Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a couple uncles that were firefighters, one in Berlin in the cold north of New Hampshire, and one out fighting tumbleweed fires out in Wyoming. But my question, when I'm thinking about all this stuff, is why, so I understand the whole fire thing and how important it is to have a outstanding, top-notch fire department. Why do you feel that I guess the fire department gets, I don't know what the word is, short shrift, I guess, on things? Is it because, people don't feel like they need the fire department until they got a fire in their house, where police, it's just, they're there all the time? Like, I don't believe that. I believe, but I'm kind of curious why the fire department is short. And not just from the pandemic part of it, but why do we feel that we're not able to give you more funds for the stuff that you truly need? Because everything you've talked about tonight, to me, in my eyes, is something we need. And I know the mayor had said that, I think he said that you guys came at a 9% budget, and that was cut a little bit. But I guess, why doesn't seem like it's that important to people when, we all here know that it is?
So I have two theories, and that's all they are, theories. I can't be inside everybody's mind within the city. But my first theory is that it's a roll of the dice, right? The fire department's like an insurance policy, and if you've ever needed us and you've experienced that worst day, you recognize our value. If you've never had to pick up the phone and call for our help, it's pretty easy to roll the dice and say, I'll get away with it. And each time you get a win and a year goes by that you didn't need the fire department, your confidence grows that you may never need the fire department. However, eventually, as we all know, tragedy strikes, and most people do have some experience with us at some way, shape, or form throughout the years. The funny thing about firefighters is they fix problems with no matter what you give them. So the people that came before me were doing their due diligence with the budget that was put before them. And they were doing the work that they felt appropriate to be good stewards of the budget and good stewards of the organization. I lived through those days, and I don't question any of the decisions they made at that point in time. But a lesson I learned was that doing with what was given to us wasn't helping move the organization forward, and we lost a lot of ground as the city was growing in front of us. The mayor and I consistently engage in conversation about why the fire department's requests are always so much higher than everybody else's. It's because everybody else was consistently coming in and trying to get right back up on the horse and establish that again, where we were just doing our due diligence and trying to get by, thinking that sooner or later somebody was gonna come along and say, hey, we're ready to stand you back up. Well, nobody came along really to help stand us back up, and we've slowly started to get back up there. So at the end of the day, my job is to tell you as the fire chief what I need to run the fire department, and the requests are in front of you.
Follow-up?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that answer, and thank you for that. The less fires we hear about means to me that you guys are doing your job, right? And the less people that perish in a fire, again, you guys are doing your job. So you're right. It's kind of in some ways out of sight, out of mind sometimes for people. But it's appreciative not to hear of some horrible incident. And so I agree with everything you said. And I look at it like the pavement, the paving went by the wayside, and then we put a plan together, and now every year we're doing that. And I think it's time that we look at the fire department as well and get them back up to speed, or at least on the road to getting back up to speed. We know we need another fire department, fire station. We've known that for a long time, and it's something I will support when the time comes for that to come out. But thank you for that answer. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Thank you. Chief, professional standards, how are we handling that now?
It's a cooperative effort throughout the organization, and quite honestly, we're failing. If you're a firefighter, you test to get promoted. You take some classes on your own. There are certain monetary incentives that would encourage you to go to school. But if you do well on the test, one day you could be riding on the back side of the truck, and then on the next day you're in the right front seat, and you're in charge of the crew making decisions. And we don't have the bandwidth at this point in time to really give them any formal training. There is an informal program in place, but it's significantly deficient to what we should be doing.
Yes, follow-up.
So would this assistant chief position be in charge of professional standards?
He would oversee the development, relieve some of the workload from other people to allow them to develop programs. A deputy chief in the street is in charge of company officers, the company officer in charge of the crews. The deputy chief's bandwidth at this point in time, because they have so many balls in the air that they're juggling in areas of responsibility, limits their ability to mentor a younger, new fire officer as they're getting started.
Follow-up?
I know how important professional standards are. I've seen it at the police department. My daughter actually does it for the Department of Corrections up in Concord. It's important. If you want to give people the best fire service you can give, and I appreciate that about you, Chief. And the chiefs before you. They come in here and they plead their case, and they still get cut. So I think professional standards are very important, and I'd like to see this position funded.
Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. Chief Buxton, you were gracious last, I'm gonna say summer. We met about Nashua Fire and Rescue becoming, I'm gonna forget it, Class 1 Fire Department.
Yep.
And you went through some of the steps, and where are we in that process? How are we doing?
We're getting there. Quite honestly, bandwidth-wise, it's not at the top of my radar. If we achieve it, we achieve it. I will tell you, like, we're closer than we have ever been. But it's one of those things, we don't have somebody to pay it the attention it's due to achieve that goal. There is no other ISO 1 rated fire department in the state of New Hampshire. We missed it by a couple of points last time. It's a pretty complex formula. And there's probably not enough hours tonight for me to explain it all to you. But at the end of the day, you need somebody to work on that project for a significant amount of time. We have made some changes in our organization that I'm almost certain that we probably, as we sit today, are a Class 1 fire department. We just don't have the bandwidth or the hours in a day to put somebody on the project to get them back in here to reevaluate us.
Okay, thank
So-
you, yes.
So, you know, firemen, when there's a fire, they're the ones that run into the burning building and put themselves in harm's way. And every time I see something about 9/11, it just amazes me that those people went in, climbed stairs, and then the tower came down. Those are firemen. But that's not all they do. They're usually the first people at a medical emergency and able to save lives before AMR can get there, or the police department can get there. And that always impressed me, because when there's an emergency, bang, they're there. But the other thing is that they have a group, fire marshals, that have been working diligently with us on the school building projects to do all the inspections that are required to make sure that we have a safe building. And that's critically important when you're building a building for young students to be in. And that's a good portion of what they do. And they were short fire marshals, and we added one last budget season. So now they're pretty efficient at what they're doing, and actually we've kept them pretty busy. So we have a lot of school projects going on. So I just want to thank them for all the work they're doing with us on the school projects and making sure that our buildings are safe for the kids. But like I said, they do a lot. Any other questions? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you. So Chief, I don't know, was it a couple of months ago you were here asking us to move up the purchase of two more vehicles, and you were hoping to get the what you call the legacy, Cummins legacy engine? Did you make it? Were you able to get it?
Yes, we snuck in the door. When we were awarded our contract, there were under 15 motors left nationwide.
And you got two of them?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and speaking of that IT person, when they get these new trucks in, they have to go down to Connet Road. And it takes them a while to get the truck ready for service, and one of it is putting in all those radios. You know, we do all that. It doesn't come that way. So there's a lot of work when we get the new truck in, right?
Correct?
You get your hand up, or are you just,
Writer's cramp. I'm writing my book.
Chief?
I did have one more thing. Alderwoman Karen had asked me to air out everything I had requested in the budget that wasn't funded. And one other position we had requested for a half-year funding was a captain of EMS within our organization, and that was at a total of $54,251. EMS is a significant amount of business that we do within our organization. Currently, the training division attempts to oversee this. However, they don't do it its due diligence, and by that I mean we're meeting the minimum, and we are much better than that. We rely heavily on AMR, which is very uncomfortable for me. While they provide us a good service, they're also soon to be a publicly traded company that is for-profit, obviously, and EMS, emergency medical services, to me, is a critical infrastructure that we provide to our citizens. We first respond to all the calls, and all of our members are basic EMTs. However, we don't currently have the ability to process refusals, to do our due diligence reporting-wise. or even necessarily equipment and skill set wise in the field, because we don't have somebody overseeing that program completely.
Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you very much for coming in, and if you could provide that information to Donna, we'll be all set.
Will do.
All right. Alderman O'Brien, the correct motion.
The correct motion would be, Mr. Chairman. I made a mistake once, he won't let me forget it.
The only one, the only one.
And I know, I deserve it evidently. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to table 23-125, which is the pending budget.
So the motion is to table the budget until tomorrow evening, and we'll be doing finance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, budget's back on the table. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks. General discussion.